Theresa, I'm going to call you.
Oh, really? I mean, I don't care. You can call me Theresa. I've been called worse.
Tess. Pronounce your second name again.
Cesnik.
Cesnik, there we go. You did tell me earlier on, and I do know it, but I just forget it because I want to say Cesnik.
So badly. So every cell in your body. Yeah.
Cesnik.
Yeah, I have the same problem when I speak to any, like, bills or anyone like that, telecommunications people like that. They say, is that Mrs. Cesnik? I'm like, that was my mother. First of all, it's Cesnik. Second of all, not married to my father. And I'm like, and it's Cesnik. And then again, they turn around and they're like, okay, so Miss Cesnik. And I'm like,
yeah, it's a great start. Bye.
Let's just move on.
Well, anyway, thank you for coming on the show. We obviously know each other quite well, and we'll go into detail of that for everyone after. But it'd be good to really break some in-depth things down about you and your life, and everything that's sort of happened for you as such.
Lots.
Well, I've got a list, and I think it's only half the list, but we'll still go through.
How many podcasts do you have?
So, just before I do forget, because I always forget, we'll do the present first. The gift.
The gift.
It's something that we do, obviously, for the guys listening. It's something we do with every person that comes on the podcast, where we have a little gift for you to put on the wall.
It's very posh.
So I hope you can. Gift. Well, it looks like a posh gift, to be fair.
Yeah, it's just because I like gold.
But talk us through it. What is it?
This is it's 2 tickets because you stop over. This is my one-way ticket out of Australia to England.
Boom.
Yeah.
And that's your actual one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why did you choose to give me this?
It was really hard to... I was like, I don't know. You can't have my dog. She won't stay there. Yeah, I don't know. It was really difficult to think of something...
that would remind...
that was fitting, Like, I mean, what? As a strength competitor in general, your brain goes, oh, well, I've got lots of medals and certificates, but A, which one matters? B, none, And so I was like, I don't know. And then everything else is kind of falls into the other side of me, which has a full pagan altar in their house and follows the Wiccan wheel of the year. I'm like, that might be a bit too far into the ethereal. Maybe we'll go baby steps there. But yeah, I've had this for years and it wasn't in a frame.
Why did you keep that out of interest?
Because I used to keep stuff like that anyway.
Right.
Like ticket stubs from concerts. Like I'd keep those. Because I'd never take photos because I was too busy being there. So it was always like a memory of a... This is where the path veered left.
Yeah.
This is when I went, right, we're doing it. I talked about it my whole life and I was like, fuck it, we're going. Yeah. And my life has been entirely different in all of the ways I wanted it to, the good and the bad, ever since I got on that plane. And if anyone ever wants to travel to another country, one way, do it on New Year's. Plane's empty, flights are cheap.
Is that when you just...
Yep. Day before New Year's Eve, nobody wants to fly. I had the whole row to myself for everything. There was no one in the airport.
But I thought it'd actually be a lot of people travelling.
So did I. I thought they'd finish Christmas and then travel somewhere for New Year's. No, they're already there.
Fair.
Yeah. Although I had no idea what day it was when I got here. My mate who lives here...
Well, plus, and it's a how long flight? What is it?
I stopped over in Vietnam for like 9 hours, which isn't long enough to leave the airport. So I was in transit for like 24 hours or like 28 hours because of the Vietnam stopover. But I got here. My mate from England lived with me in Australia for a year, one of my best mates. She lives in Rutland and I was in Gerrards Cross where my family's from, darling, at the time, yes. And she drove from Rutland after Christmas with her family, picked me up and then drove me to her flat in Clapham Common at the time. And then I had New Year's with her and her friends the next day in Shoreditch. So I was jet lagged with no idea where I was. And at 1 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve, Australians were like, Happy New Year. I was like, where am I? Yeah, and I got to this house party and I still partied in the illegal way at the time, a little bit. And one of them said to me, how are you feeling? I'm like, well, 2 hours ago, I had no idea what planet I was on. Now, I still don't know, but I no longer give a shit.
Lost interest in
Yeah, and she made me go outside, which is such a normal thing to a British person, right? But she made me go outside. She's like, come with me, we've got to go meet someone. And I was like, all right, whatever. So we walk outside, we're having a cigarette out the front, and it's like, 11 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve in frickin' Shoreditch. And some 12-year-old rocks up on a bicycle and a black bomber and a beanie, has this creepy conversation with my mate, hands her something that he probably wasn't supposed to hand her, and rides off. I was like, whose little brother was that? And she's like, that's normal. That's
He's just a runner,
it's
isn't he?
Deliveroo, you know? And I'm like, he was 12. And she goes, probably. I was like, why is this
he will
normal?
then never get done.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is insane. We talk about working age, you know. But yeah, this is my tickets. So
Thank you very much. Let me
yeah,
have a look at it.
it's kind of faded and sat around, and
Well, it shows its
old.
its age.
But it was
We can stick that on the wall as well, because
Yeah.
we can pin it on.
it was something that was quite important to me. But then I kind of didn't really know why anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just kind of exists in my
As long
life.
as I'm not taking like a deep memory off you.
Nah, man,
Keep it.
take it.
You can have it.
Fuck that place.
So, when we're looking at your, you and your journey and everything. Now, first of all, let's touch on why we know each other and where we're at, because it's good to sort of know why we've crossed paths as such. And I guess then let's sort of like go back and restart your life without reliving your life as such.
You might get to see some ugly crying today.
But tell us who you are, first of all. Like who you are and exactly what you do.
I'm 33. Unlike you, I know how old I am. I think you know how old you are now.
33 for
No, you're
2 years.
35. Yeah, nearly 3 years. I'm 33. I have a history in competitive sport. I moved over here 6 years ago, nearly 7 years ago, with my dog at the time. I have a different dog now. I own a strength and conditioning, strongman and powerlifting specific gym in Shropshire. Come down. It's pink and yellow. It's fun.
Loads of crazy shit.
Yep. Everyone's a weirdo. Excellent. I've been competing in strength sports for pretty much 6 years. Always did strongwoman, but focused on powerlifting. As of the last 18 months, went, let's do the strongman thing. And that's where you come in, because I'm doing way too many things to do my own programming mentally. And I know you because you coached my ex-boyfriend, who refers to himself, who refers to himself as average man. And then I coached him and then decided that he didn't need to be my client or my boyfriend.
All in one? Was that in one
Close.
action?
Within a matter of sort of
By
weeks.
the way,
Yeah.
don't you, and I'm not going anymore.
Sorry. Have a nice day.
And you, so at the minute, obviously, you've just competed, haven't you, in...
First pro comp.
Yeah.
Like Chaos, Queen of the North.
Yeah.
That was painful. Yeah. It was good. I did as well as I would want to, given my life at the time as well. And as my first pro comp, the stakes were where they should be. I'm a big believer that a lot of women's comps are not nearly hard enough. Otherwise, why would, not now, but why would a 65 kilo powerlifter be able to come in with no prep and a torn muscle and win?
Yeah.
You know, and like compete in the men's first timers and win. I am a freak, but still. But the gap between televised pro shows, that sort of thing, and opens or weight classes in regional stuff is huge, and it shouldn't be. Excuse me. Lots of coffee. So the Chaos comp was always going to be a good comp because Rhiannon's mental in the best way possible. So yeah, it was tough, but I wanted it to be tough, and I came 9th out of 17 women. So it was all right. But
Something I'll keep talking about because it was just fucking stupid.
100 kilo farmers.
No. The fucking like 20 different implements for the overhead press.
7-item overhead press, which was annoying because I could do 4 of those items any day of the week. And I think I successfully did 1 on the day.
But who does fucking 7?
Who pushes an atlas stone above their head? An atlas stone. Like, a natural stone would have been fine because it's kind of like an oblong shape.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, I can get
Anyway,
purchase on it.
I
But
think that's just Rhiannon being
Ow.
saying this.
you know, she
Crazy.
said in the athletes meeting at the start, she was like, basically we went around the gym and figured out what I could press overhead and put it in the medley, and I was like, great,
Cool.
brilliant,
Happy.
yeah. So yeah.
So I've got a few things on here that are points to mention, I guess. But you moved to England 2017.
New Year's Eve, day before New Year's Eve, cheap to fly.
And your dad's sort of
My mum's
tumour?
English.
No, sorry, your dad's tumour, was that prior, or was that before or after?
So my dad had a stage 5 glioma, which is a brain tumour. He was a high-level doctor and the head of different facilities at different universities, faculties at different universities. So he was a really chilled-out human. But he got sick 2004, and they gave him 8 weeks. And he died in 2007. Is that correct? Yeah, I was 17.
You were 17, yeah.
Yeah, I was
14
17.
when you found out.
Yeah, I was born in 1990, so the maths is really easy, but I get confused.
I'm not good at maths. I'm not going to comment.
I don't know when my birthday is.
Trust you.
Yes. You should know that, though, for when you get pulled over. When's your birthday?
I just go like that as a card there.
Yes.
Read it on there.
Me. For nearly 5 years he was sick for. In my mind, he died a long time before he died, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because of treatment and who he was.
Yeah.
And who he was.
Do you
by the
mean
time he
in the
died.
space of you being 14 to 17?
Yeah,
Right.
during the time of
not
his
prior.
illness.
But how were you before that? Like, what was your relationship like with your dad?
Brilliant. Yeah, like we're the same. Him, myself, and my cousin are all 15 years apart. She's older than me. And we're like the three in our family who were like the crazy Eastern Europeans who partied too much and could like command a room and people are drawn to, but like would just walk in and wing it and do really well and annoy everyone, you know. But had like no life preservation concept because we were always fine. You know, like I'm made of lead. I don't really drink anymore because there's no point. Not because it turns me into someone I don't want to be, because everyone's hammered and I'm like, well, I've spent 300 quid and I already have a hangover. This was pointless. You know, but like we were all like that with everything. So until he was like my world. Both my parents were only children, so I got an older sister. So when they had 2 children, they had no idea. So they were like, we'll just have one each. And both my parents were working when I was born, not when my sister was born. So they split up? After I was born.
Right.
But I grew up mostly with my grandparents because both my parents were working. So I grew up like my dad did with my Eastern European grandparents. Because they were in Australia. They immigrated to Australia when Eastern Europe was in war, one of the many times that Yugoslavia was no longer Yugoslavia. But yeah, so I grew up with them. And by the time I was 9, I think, maybe 10, 9, I was 9, my parents then split up. So I remember them being together and lots of stuff. And then my dad got remarried in the year 2000 on the Y2K. And the computers didn't shut down and take over, like we said they were going to. And then he was sick 4 years later.
So when they split up, did that affect you?
When my parents split up, my mum, I was always a really independent kid. Like I used to say things like, the other children at school are boring and I don't want to talk to them. I would much rather hang out with adults or just be left completely to my own devices. Like I've always been really good at fixing things. Just leave me to fix stuff. You know, the fact that they didn't realise I was autistic is beyond all of us. But when my parents split up, they do that thing where they get their kids all those books where they're like, you know, it's not your fault, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one day when I was like maybe 10 or 11, I remember being like, can you stop doing this? It's really annoying. I know it's not my fault. I was like a child and I remember turning around to them and saying, I know it's not my fault. You cheated on her and you wanted all of his money. And they were like, oh my God, you know.
So they didn't need a counsellor?
No, I didn't. No, I had anger management counsellors because I was psycho, but not for that. But I remember I never watched Neighbours as an adult, but I remember the episode of Neighbours that was on television the day my dad left. Super weird, like random stuff like that.
Have you watched it since?
No, not really. God, no. My sister wanted to watch it. I'm good, thanks. People say things to me here all the time that is from Neighbours, and I look at them like they've grown another head.
I wouldn't know.
I
wouldn't have a clue.
And they're like, Neighbours, come on. And I'm like, real world, gonna die. Turn off the television, you know. But yeah, I remember that day, and I remember them arguing, but they were always arguing. He was away working, or they were screaming at each other. So when they finally, and the only other memories I have is really good memories with Dad. I don't really have any memories with my mum because she was always with my sister, going to pony club and all those things. So all that happened for me was that all of a sudden I had a place to hang out with my dad and my mum wasn't there. Or my sister. Brilliant. And if mum said, no, you can't shave your head, dad would be like, what'd your mum say? And I'd be like, she said no. And he'd be like, here's the clippers. Great. You know,
is that for him or for you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't give a shit. Worked well for me. It all worked to my advantage. So no, that wasn't really an issue for me. It was definitely an adaptation that my dad had another life so quickly in hindsight, because he'd been with this woman behind closed doors for like quite a while. And then, so he just moved into a house. You know, I didn't have that thing that people talk about when their parents break up where they see their dad in public because he's staying in a hotel, or they go to the hotel where their dad's staying, or whatever, or he moves back into his parents' house. He was just all of a sudden living with this woman, you know, and like they were building an extension on their house and it was their house. And I was like, that was kind of random.
That was quick.
Yeah, that was quick. I was like, when did that happen? You know, like fast food relationships. Probably explains a lot of my relationships, but that's for a different day.
I guess it's like he walked into the house and went, right, we're having an extension.
We are. She had 3 daughters. I'm the youngest of all of the females. My poor dad has been surrounded by women his entire life. I was born and he was like, I wanted a son, but I'm not doing this again. You will do. I'm getting a vasectomy. Yeah. So people are like, are you gay? I'm like, no, my dad just wanted a boy. Ta-da.
It's been as boyish as you could have.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I'd be like, I got my nails done. And he'd be like, I don't understand. But yeah, so that was all pretty normal. But she had 3 daughters. One was definitely living out of home. One was nearly completely out of home. The other one was 17 or something, 16 at the time.
So do you speak to any of
the middle one
now?
I don't speak to my sister, not necessarily intentionally, but we'd rather not. You know, I speak to my middle stepsister, not all the time, but like we comment on each other's stuff on social media and stuff. They're in Australia, and like she married a Scottish bloke. I met him there, but I remember when we all met him, we had no idea what he was saying. And when I moved over here and first went up to Glasgow, I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
It's pretty hard though, I don't like it.
They speak like Australians. They speak really fast, they swear all the time, and they mumble.
But then you still couldn't tell what he was saying, right?
When I was a kid. But then when I moved over, it was like I'd had a fast track, in-depth synopsis, you know, in Glaswegian. And I was like, this is great. Yeah. And I got up there, I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
But then as soon as they start drinking, I'm like just nodding. And they're like, you don't know what's going on, do you? I'm like, no, but I don't care.
It's getting faster and faster and faster.
I'm having a great time. But yeah, so that was... So all of a sudden he was in a house of me. My sister didn't really go there much, but I moved there for a period of time. So it was me and 2.5 other daughters. So, and 2 dogs and 3 dogs at one point.
So it's always been like a busy
Yeah.
household for you.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then when I was a kid, I had loads of Eastern European family. Like uncles that
So
aren't
dad's
your uncles.
East European, mum is
British.
British.
English. Through and through.
Right, got you, yeah.
She and dad met in South Africa during the apartheid because they wanted white people to come work. So they both went over there for work. He was doing his internship as a surgeon and she was a hairdresser. And they met at her house party. And he said, this house is a bit shit, isn't it? And she said, thanks, I live here.
That was a good chat, boy.
Yeah, and right. And she refused to date anyone younger than her. So he lied. He's 4 years younger than her. So he lied until they were married. Yep, when they were organising the wedding, he had to do birth certificates for the registrar.
And went, oh shit.
And went, by the way, I'm actually 4 years younger than you.
And there's nothing you can do about it right now.
So, yeah. I say to her, don't worry, you outlived him anyway.
You got no filter.
No.
So when your dad went through that sort of like brain tumor stuff, my mum, I think I've told you before, my mum's had a brain aneurysm, and although she's alive, that really crushed me at the time. Like,
Is she fine?
how is she?
Fine.
Yes, she's fine.
Because
You
there's
wouldn't know.
2 types of aneurysm.
We
One,
wouldn't know.
it dissipates. One,
Yeah.
there's bruising.
She's actually got to have another operation soon. You wouldn't know that she's had one, I guess, but she has got brain damage and she gets tired early in the day. Do you know what I mean? And things like that.
Yeah.
There feel like backlashes of things that happen.
More like physical restraints than intellectual restraints.
Yeah, yeah. But obviously, like, that crushed me going through that with my mum. How did you, do you know what I mean? How did you cope with it?
I don't know. People ask me that all the time. I was on a lot of drugs.
Do you feel like that was probably the reason it was blanked out your life as such?
Yeah, so I'm very aware of the whole time. I probably have a lot more awareness and in-depth memory than most people do of 14 to 17. Like, if you think about your life 14 to 17, you did loads of stuff, but, like, could you actually tell me what it all was?
No, yeah.
No, like, you've got random memories, but you've probably only got maybe, like, 4 memories-ish, 4 to 8 memories that you really remember from that period of time, especially if you partied. But I remember so much of that time because there was an understanding of urgency, that it was important. We didn't know. We knew it was going to be the end at some point. I knew. I think some people were in, I'm not teary, I'm getting over a cold, and I have no lung capacity. Which is probably good for you, I'll talk less. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I remember all sorts of things. So, like, I'll remember a tough conversation or a tough moment throughout Dad's illness. But therefore, I remember everything that happened for 24 hours after that. On top of those, say, 4 to 8 core memories of that house party where you first took a pill. Those sorts of things. You know, like, I have all those first memories, mostly. Some of them I don't remember. But then I've also got all these memories of that thing happened and then this happened afterwards. Like, I have memories of... I had a really good psychologist. That was probably a big help. In Australia, we've got a group called...
As in around that age, yeah?
In Australia, we've got a group called Canteen. You know Daffodil Day?
No.
So it's for cancer, like, you know, you buy ribbons and stuff.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry, yeah, I do.
The
yeah,
daffodil,
right,
yeah?
got you. Yeah, yeah.
So in Australia, we have a group called Canteen, and it's to support young people living with cancer. So, like, siblings, children, patients, etc. And it was founded by a teen psychologist called Michael Carr-Gregg, and he's really famous. But because he founded this group, he sees anyone who's a member of that group for free until they're 25. So I would see him. So he's excellent psychologist. Like, one day he accidentally billed us, and it was terrifying. It was like $300 for a session.
Did you pay it?
No. So he was really good. So I went through... He was actually probably a massive factor. I was very self-aware and very mature internally, a lot younger than most people. You know, people say, oh, is it hard not having your dad around? I'm like, well, I don't know life in another way. Yeah. I don't have... When he first died, I didn't have any of this when he was sick, right? Because you're so focused on them.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and you're not focused on what it should be or what it could be anymore. There's times when it was like, this doesn't happen to us, that sort of thing. But you don't think, oh, what if, you know? But when he first died, I like for example, I couldn't go to like a children's playground. I couldn't watch a bloke play with his kids. Yeah. You know, those sorts of things. Yeah. I still get really emotional now, but it's not negative now. Like
it's a memory style.
Yeah, like I see you with your kids and I'm like, it's really beautiful. You know, like, especially because, like, I mean, how many blokes do you know in the world of strength sports that have children? Better question is, how many blokes in the world of strength sports don't? Yeah. 4? Yeah. Maybe? And they just think they don't. Testosterone is not a contraceptive. Just putting it out there. Yeah, it's the reverse, in fact. Gives you super children. That's how it works, right? But yeah, so I get really emotional, but in a positive way, when I see people doing what I'm doing in strength sports with their kids now. Their kids are there. Like your kids being at OSG with you. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I'm like, that's so cool, you know? But then the flip side, the only time that I get a bit sad about it is, like, I went to my friend's wedding recently and her dad and her stepdad walked her down the aisle. And I'm like...
But is that feeling of...
Things you'll never do?
Yeah. Like that
it took a long time for my sister as well, I reckon. But it took a long time for us. My dad was a lot to live up to, and he was very high pressure. It took a long time for us to live for us. You know, like, we were going to do good at school and university because Dad told us to. I was going to be a forensic psychiatrist because that's what my dad would have told me to do. Yeah, I have a brain. Trash by choice. But I think that's a big part of why I went into strength sports. My dad thought sports were really important, but he also thought they were a hobby. He'd be like...
Rather than earning money from
Yeah, he'd be like, this is great, but what's paying your bills?
What are you going to really do?
What are you going to really do?
But he was very academic there, wasn't he, in that
100%.
respect?
And athletic.
So they see that as that is the only way.
Yeah, and also, like, the joke in our family is he was born and his Serbian mother turned around and said, the doctor said, well, congratulations, you've had a boy. And she said, no, doctor. That's the joke in our family, no, doctor. He was always going to be a doctor. From the day he was born, before he was born.
Let's be honest, she lived it out and he did what he...
Yeah, 100%. And a good one. So it was that same thing. It was like my father and his father both taught skiing to pay for university. So I came from a family of mountain people. We were all really active. We all rode horses. My dad rode bikes. We all were always outside. You know, we were always really active.
Don't you think that's a big part of Australia as well, though?
There's lots of outside.
It just is, isn't it? Like, because it's just fucking so much bigger than the UK anyway.
Now, not as much, because iPads, all that sort of stuff, technology.
Of course, yeah.
When I grew up, like, I was only born in the 90s, right? But like 1990. But when I grew up in a town that had like 300 people in it. When I went to primary school, there was 300 people in my primary school. And I remember thinking, you all have 2 parents. You know? In the winter, in the ski season where I grew up, there was 10,000 people. So I knew that group of people. There was 9 kids in my whole school when I went to school up there. We didn't have television reception.
That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, 9. We were all in one class. Like... People are like, oh, you
Is that why you're so smart then? Do you think you just got all the attention?
No, I'm autistic. I'm autistic. I'm great at lots of things and
Everyone
terrible at people. You know? Yeah, but my one-to-one teacher was a bumpkin. Like, she was lovely, but she was a bumpkin. But yeah, we were always outside, but it was you will always be active and you will always get good grades and you must be very good at everything. You know? And like my sister... owns an equestrian centre and is immigrating here for like 3 or 5 years next year to Gloucester to do the same thing and to get on the Olympic team and go to the Olympics as a horse rider.
Really?
Yep. And she's an HR manager and has been running businesses her whole life, like, you know, and then like I have world records and was going to do this and own a business and moved country and just land on my feet, and we're just so fucking annoying as people. Like, you know, we're full on. My sister and I are both so different, but we're full on.
Is your sister autistic?
No, my mum and my sister got tested and they contacted me over here and they're like, so we got tested for autism. And I'm like, most neurotypical people I've ever met in my fucking life. Yeah. And she's like, neither of us are autistic. I'm like, I could have told you that. I was like, well, good on you for getting tested anyway. You know, in Australia where you can just get tested. But no, my sister isn't. My sister worked her ass off for reasonable grades. I pissed about and got A's across everything. You know, like art, science, language, maths. If I applied myself, 15%. And then my year 8 coordinator, my first high school, because I was always getting kicked out of class for throwing things across the room because everyone was boring.
Don't know why.
Yeah. She said she was Canadian and she used to be on the Olympic weightlifting team. And in my memory, she was Trunchbull. She was the biggest woman I'd ever seen in my life. In hindsight now, she's probably not really that big. She was probably like a sub 82 kilo fucking lifter. But she was enormous. And she was like, come with me. And we had a weightlifting room at this shitty school that I went to because of her. And she was like, pick that barbell up. And I said, to where? And she went, over your head, and I snatched it and landed in a squat. And she was like, you will do weightlifting. You know, when I was 14, I was like under 50 kilos. 13, I was under 50 kilos, and I snatched 80 kilos. You know, and it was like, well,
So when did you start doing weightlifting? What age?
then,
At that age?
yeah, when I was 12 and 13.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, you're a freak. I was skiing before I could walk. I was strapped to my father and then held up on the end of his skis, you know, and riding horses. So I've always had legs. And then from the age of 7, I was doing kicking sports, fighting. So it was like, well, she's strong. I didn't crawl. I dragged myself around by my arms and then just got up and walked one day. Mum was like, you finally wanted something enough that you did something about it. And I was like, sounds like my life. But I could do a pull-up and end up on the dining room table. You know, like my upper body strength was always that of a boy, you know. So I was built for strength sports. Like I've got that Eastern European. She's either going to do strength sports or she's going to lay concrete.
Either or both.
Either or both, yeah. I've done both, you know. So when I got over here, I was already in fitness and I'd gotten on stage and stuff, but some of my friends were powerlifters in the gym that I worked in Camberwell in Australia, in Melbourne. And they were like, please, when you're done faffing around in a glittery bikini, please do powerlifting. Because I was benching 70 kilos at 60 kilos body weight for 3 reps with a flat back. They were like, please do this. I was like, okay. And my first powerlifting comp, I was sub 75 kilos and I got a 400 kilo total. And everyone's like, that's amazing. And I was like, is it? I
guess to you, though, that was just you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
I was like, I want to get they're like, what do you want to get? Where do you want to place? I was like, I don't give a fuck where I place. I just want to get a 400 kilo total. They're like, why? I'm like, because it's a flat number. You know?
What, 500?
Yeah, all right. And so I pulled a 12-second deadlift because I refused to not have a flat number. I just would not let go. I was like, just keep holding on and someone will say down and it will be fine. Or you will pass out and you won't know.
Yeah. And then you just get fanned off and then be like, okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't until about maybe 3 years ago that I realised, and I actually started coaching powerlifters, that I realised that these women are like, oh my God, I got a 260 kilo total. And everybody's amazed. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? In the inside. On the outside, I'm like, well done. That's really good. Yeah. For me, I was like, that's...
Oh, did you do the second lift?
That's squat and bench for me, you know? Like, and people like my clients, they say to me, oh, you know, but I've got a shit bench. And I'm like, what do you bench? And they're like a 60 kilo woman, 65, 70 kilo woman. I say, what do you bench? And they go 65 kilos for a double. I'm like, that's a really good bench. And like, yeah, but you, I'm like, I'm a freak. Like, I benched 100 kilos for the first time with a torn hamstring. No, a ruptured ligament in my ankle. So I had one foot not on the ground. You know, like, I'm a freak. And I'm still not good enough. So it was just kind of a natural progression. I got over here, signed up. My mate signed me up for a comp. And I did it. And I benched 90 like it was nothing. And I looked at him and he was like, we should have gone heavier. I was like, we should have gone heavier.
Now you say.
Yeah. And yeah, just off I went. So I was like, well, it turns out I'm kind of good at this. You know, and it was like, when I first moved over here, it was like I finally found my tribe. You know, and then throughout lockdown, it would kind of, and before lockdown, it kind of became very apparent that, no, I was just getting caught up on having friends or feeling like I had friends. I didn't understand a lot of the English social constructs.
Yeah,
that's been a massive issue for me. You know, you're there, so you're our friend. But, like, you know, if you got hit by a bus, we probably wouldn't know.
No, what friend?
Yeah, who? You know?
Can't remember.
Helped me move house, who? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not like this person's an asshole. That's just different. You know, it's just not how it works here. I grew up surrounded by Eastern Europeans, like Germans. Say it how it is. Which has got me in a lot of trouble here. But it also means that now the people around me, I have no filter and I don't want one. You know, like my whole brand, my self-brand is this is who I am. And I will always say what needs to be said, not what you want to hear. And I will always support you if it's valid. But if you're being a tit, I'm going to tell you. I don't give a shit if you like it or not. You don't need to like me. I'm not here for you to like me.
It's tough, isn't it, like with society now, because obviously it's not right to be yourself. It's not right to say what you want. You know, like it's, you know, without going into it all, it's like all the gender stuff nowadays and everything like that. It just gets scary, doesn't it, where it's going? And then it's like,
yeah,
you know, I always worry about my children, like, because they're growing up into that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's hard for you as a parent to navigate that because you didn't have to navigate anything like that.
And it's new to us.
Yeah. And my thing is, like, with the whole gender thing specifically, I don't care what you think your gender is. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand the argument. I know why there is an argument. Because it's like, yeah, but the people that do care, government forms, that sort of thing, that's the issue. But day-to-day life, you could think that you're a potato. That's good for you.
Doesn't matter.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
You know?
really doesn't matter.
I
Do you know,
don't...
do you know
Yeah.
what's really funny yesterday? Sarah doesn't normally laugh at these things, but she laughed at it, so I was really impressed.
You're like, yes.
So yesterday we got an email from Leo's nursery saying that so there's obviously like nut allergies, so there are nuts in the nursery. A while ago we was a bit like, but Leo hasn't got a nut allergy, and if he wants to eat nuts, but anyway, you can't be like that. But then now that apparently there's people have got, I'm trying to say this in the right way, so pineapple and kiwi airborne allergy.
Bromelain.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, Leo wants to identify as a pineapple. So
Brilliant.
is he not allowed to be?
He can't
in
go
the
to school.
nursery? And Sarah actually laughed at it. I was like, boom, you're on my wavelength. I was like, you meant about saying
How long have you been together?
Today he wants to be a pineapple. Is that okay, or
Just
is he
send
not
him to
allowed
school
in?
dressed up as a pineapple. Say nothing. No context.
Anyway, it's got nothing to do with that, but it's just funny.
He'd make a really cute pineapple, though.
I'm going to dress her up with it now. When you found out he was autistic, how old were you?
So, we always knew. It was like a joke amongst me and my friends, but it was not a joke. You know, Tess is autistic. All right, Rain Man.
Was it not autistic?
No.
Oh, has anyone ever said that?
No, people don't call Tess those kinds of names.
Damn. Well, I'm the first. It just came to my mind.
You're
I
the
thought it
first that's
sounded
not going to
right.
get punched in the face because I'm not 10 anymore. Yeah, people have, I don't know. Primary school, I got teased a lot, but women get all sorts of shit on social media. I don't. And you think, that's an easy target. Like, I'm fucking shaving my head every couple of months. You know, like, I am such an easy target to take the piss out of, but it's probably either because I don't care or because if they do, I'll screenshot it, tag them, and share it. Same if a guy sends me an unsolicited dick pic. I'll also tag him, censor it, and share it. They
Right.
love that.
I'll just write it.
Or I'll send it to his wife. Hey, are you married? Here you go.
Is this what you're married to?
Yeah, sorry.
I think you
Disappointing.
Lost. I think you lost this. I found it.
Yeah, found it. Can you get it out of my mailbox, please? Anyway, what was the question?
No, yeah, so no. but,
Autism.
like, autism, yeah. How old were you when you found out you was autistic?
30, officially. So we knew.
So it literally was only 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, they say that most people, I would have been 29. They say most people self-diagnose. You know, most adult people often self-diagnose. And I'd already gotten to a place where I was like, I'd been considering doing the testing. I'd been considering doing the testing about 2 years before I left Australia. But I was doing a bodybuilding prep and I had 30 clients.
And you didn't care.
And I was busy.
I don't need to do that.
I had no calories. I was normal because I had
If
no
you
calories.
had more calories, maybe
I
you
would have
had
cared.
the
Yeah,
energy.
I would have had feelings. I didn't have any. People say that people turn evil on prep. I was just a zombie. My boyfriend at the time would start yelling at me, and I would just stare at him. And inside my head, I'd be like, I wonder if I could have a nap soon. Is he gonna get really mad
As soon as he walks out there,
if
I'm
I
going
go
to go
to
sleep.
bed? When do I next get to eat? I'm so hungry. Surely he's hungry doing all that yelling. And he'd stop yelling and he'd be like, what do you have to say for yourself? I'd be like, I'm going to have a nap
Sorry, were you talking to me?
and we'll talk about this when I wake up. He would be so mad. But yeah, if I wasn't dying effectively, I probably would have done it then. And I should have because it's much better.
At an earlier.
No, I would have been much more supported by the government in Australia to get the testing
Yes.
done and less waiting list. Our medical system,
But
our public medical
you know,
system, better.
I think it's a bit like with me. ADHD. I only went through it last year, whatever it was. And it's one of those things where I still say to myself now, do I really care? Does it matter? Blah, blah, this, that, and the other. I always think, like, it matters when it matters. And that's quite obvious. But as in, like, if you're being affected by it, but that's a bit like what you're saying there, like, it self-diagnosed first, like, because, you know, when you start reading about things, and, you know, fucking hell, I've helped hundreds
Dr.
of
Google.
people. Yeah, but I've helped hundreds of people, and I've watched how people work and respond and all this sort of stuff, and then that's where you puzzle things together, don't you?
Yeah, and it's also, as an autistic person, it's also that I didn't have any friends in primary school. I got a sister who's nearly 5 years older than me, who was like the most popular girl in school. I started high school and I went, right, I refused to go to the high school with my sister because she was the one who started most of the teasing in primary school to try to distance herself from me.
Okay. Interesting.
And yeah, she's a cunt.
Is that the one you don't speak to?
Yeah, the one I'm actually related to. And so I went to my stepsister's high school because I didn't know anyone there. And I went, right, well, why is my sister popular? I was like 11. But I was like, why is my sister popular? Because she always has a boyfriend. I looked around, chose the most popular guy in our year level because he knew everyone and dated him. And he was the most severely ADHD person I have met to this day. He is a nice person, but he is mental. He rocked up to a party once with a meat cleaver in his pants because it was shiny. No violence intended. He was like, look at this. And we're like, why the fuck do you have that?
Sounds valid.
Yeah, right, you'd do it. And put that down. No.
No, look how shiny. Look at it.
Yeah, exactly that. But no, and just like cemented myself off the image of how someone else was popular. Yeah, and constantly throughout my life I'd just done that. And like I always knew. And by the time I was managing bars and managing nightclubs and managing cafes, and Dad had passed away already and I was like 19, you know, I had all of these other hobbies that took away that issue.
Yeah.
Like building cars, because no one would talk to me when I would build cars because I'm a girl who can build cars. So they would leave me alone. And the lads who built cars with me, they were all really stoned. And I was just one of them. And that was fine, you know. So when I got over here and I was on my own for the whole year and I wasn't on drugs anymore, like I stopped partying and stuff like that. And I'd already stopped taking drugs years before, but then like I'd really knocked it on the head, you know. And I was competing in powerlifting and I'd started taking gear. All of a sudden I was like, right, we've spent the last 12 months working into like the inner depths of who I am without the influence of everybody else. And let's figure out let's start rebuilding. We've gone back to square one. It was really traumatic, but now let's start rebuilding who I am. Who do I want to be? And it was basically like, I'm like a fucking hopeless romantic. I'm like so practical and driven, but at the same time, like, I'm going to get married on the beach and it's going to be really lovely. And you're like, crap. Yeah. Like full rom-com, real bad. It's gross. Makes me feel sick thinking about it. And it's my life. But I went, who would I want to be with? What kind of person do I want to be with? Which narrows it down to pretty much no one in England. Apparently. I went, who would I want to be with? And then modelled myself of who I would want to be with. So I'm the kind of person that I would want to be with, you know? And yep, that's this weird, you know, that this is where we've still ended up with that in mind. But then when I started looking at that, I was like, how am I so easily able to completely rewrite who I am? But who I am doesn't change, and who I project doesn't change, but how I look, how I seem, the circles I roll in, because I'm so adaptable to different conversations, different people, accountants, lawyers, you know, bros, doesn't matter, idiots, potheads. I can just seed into a group of people and it doesn't matter who they are. Snobby horse rider girls. I can do all of that. I don't want to, but I can, you know. If I have to, yeah. I'll put on a dress and cute shoes and go to a nice dinner and talk to someone about how his wife doesn't love him.
Tell you the truth.
I've done that before. And I went, all right, let's do this. Let's do the test. And a thing came up because your phone listens to you. And it was like, do this 100 questions. Are you on the spectrum? And I was like, all right. And I've been doing research for years because I'm a coach. I'm a scientist, you know. So I know what's research and what's Dr. Google. Yeah. And it was actually from a pretty good university program. And I was like, okay. And so I did the test, and you expected to say you're not autistic. And it said, please seek further help. And I was like, oh.
So is it yes or is it no?
Okay. So I was a bit nervous about doing it. So one of my friends at the time, I was up north at this point, his mum works for the Autism Society, and she did my preliminary testing in her kitchen. And she's like, you're definitely autistic. But then I just keep pushed off the waiting list. Waiting list is 18 months long. Doctors turn around to me and say, and how would this diagnosis help your life? Go fuck yourself. I had a breakdown. How dare you obese shit, ask me what's going to help my life. And then they send me 30 pages or 40 pages worth of paperwork to fill out, and then I make a mistake and I can't fill it out. And it goes in the pile with all the mail that I can't open and the emails I can't respond to. And everyone's like, oh, but you're fine. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, brilliant.
You're just lazy.
Yeah, I'm lazy.
You're lazy because you won't do the things that your brain won't let you
world
do.
records, running 3 businesses at once, definitely lazy.
But that's the frustrating thing, isn't it? We spoke about it earlier on anyway, but that's one of the things that I don't want to say hate about myself, because it's not about feeling sorry for yourself.
It's frustrating.
But it's just frustrating, isn't it? Is that like, you know there's a problem and you know how to fix the problem, but you can't fix the problem.
Yep.
And
it's actually not, when you were younger, it was other people telling you that. But now it's you.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I've done everything, and tomorrow I'm not going to do anything intentionally. And your brain's like, you're a piece of shit.
Did you go through because obviously I went through it. Did you go through a stage of feeling shit, feeling different, because obviously you know you're different and you always do, but you know, did you go through a stage of feeling like, fuck, actually I'm different, I've now been told? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
No, it was the other way around. So I've got an older sister who's really normal. My mum was an only child, and all of my memories of my mum are, you're just like your father when we were having an argument, or why can't you be more like your sister, or we're going to see my friends today, please be normal. So like my entire childhood was filled with these sentences which seem really small to an adult, not to us now because we're so much more aware of this now, but this is in the 90s, which seem really small to an adult, asking your problem child to behave, because I was feral and aggressive and strong, you know, they're actually really heavily affected on the child. So my whole life, I remember bawling my eyes out all my life, like up until about Dad got sick, and all of a sudden it wasn't about that anymore, you know. So up until I was about 14, my whole life I remember crying often, regularly, being super upset, begging some higher power, why can't I be normal? Why can't I be like everybody else?
Is that because you knew you weren't normal, or because you were told you weren't normal?
Both.
Right.
I would look at the children around me and be like, I have nothing in common with these children. And I would look at school was really difficult because I was really good academically, but I was always in trouble. And I was always being teased. And my school teachers in primary school would even get in on it because it was the 90s in Australia, which is like the early 80s. You know, we were 10 years behind then. So, like, I had one school teacher who would play cricket in the hallway with the boys and make the girls continue all their work. Twat.
Obviously now you'd be like, what the fuck?
He doesn't have a job. A friend of mine passed away. The last one, he passed away just before I left Australia. And he was in the year under me in primary school. He was a really close friend of mine. And I went to his funeral, and my teachers were there. And a bunch of kids from my primary school that I had not seen in 16 years, like 12 years or something like that. And I was like, I beat them up then. Now I wouldn't bother. That's the better part.
Yeah, moved on.
Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, look at your sad life. All right, Susan, you know. And they were all like, oh my God, look at you. Like, I looked completely different. You know, I was a dense kid. Like, I was short, broad, and Eastern European and ate a lot. And by the time they saw me, I was like a size 4 with long blonde hair and partying all the time. You know, I was trouble, you know, in the fun way, but trouble. Lock up your boyfriends and girlfriends when I was a teenager. I was very bored. But I saw them all there, and I was talking to a couple of them who weren't complete assholes. And they were telling me about how so many of our teachers had had altercations at school. Like that guy, his wife had rocked up and confronted him in the middle of the quad in the middle of the day because he was sleeping with one of the female teachers.
But that was fun.
Oh, I wish I was there. That would have been brilliant. But there was this whole dynamic around me all the time where not just my mother, but the whole world gave me these signals that I was different, that I was weird, and that I was a problem. But then at the same time, they were like, you're really good at school and you're really good at this and you're going to be a leader and you're going to go really far and you're really good at sport. But socially, you're a problem. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life if you're the way you are. You know, and which takes me forward, My mum was here for a couple of months recently, and a couple of months is way too long. And that was the end of our relationship. And we had a conversation the day she left, the day before she left. We had a conversation about it previously when I was like, I'm done. But then we had a face-to-face conversation the day before she left, and she said, I was telling her, you know, I've built this life. I've worked really hard to build this life my way. You know, I knew from a young age, if I wanted to be the way that I am, because I couldn't not, then I was going to be on my own. And I was going to have to do it on my own. And I was going to have to self-parent a lot, you know. And then Dad was sick. He was there. But then he was sick, so he wasn't there. You know, and I was like, well, I'm going to be a loner. I better get used to that now and figure out how to do these things my way, because people aren't telling me another way to do them. They're just telling me I'm wrong.
That's smart, because you're using your self-survival sort of...
My self-awareness was through the roof,
Yeah.
you know, but you shouldn't have to be like that as a kid, you
No.
know. And, like, this is, like, as a child. You know, this isn't 18 years old. This is as a child. I remember being, like, 15 and looking at my mum come for me and realising that it wasn't about me when I was 15. Right, this is a you problem. This isn't actually a me problem. But we're having this conversation, my mother and I, and I'm saying, you know, I've built this life and this is who I want to be and I've worked really hard. And she said something she always says to me these days. And she goes, I know, and I'm really proud of what you've done. And I said, that's the problem. I don't care that you're proud of me anymore. In fact, I actually don't want you to be proud of me anymore, because you were always telling me that who I was wrong. You know, and now I've done it my way against you, despite you, you know,
You're proud.
and you're proud. Fuck off. You know, you've lost that right with me. I chose my family. You know, I've got a really small selection of people who are my family here. And she's not part of that. And she said, you know, and we kept talking, and she said, well, you know, I can't. She goes through these repeat excuses that she doesn't realise it repeats. And she said, I can't help it if that's how my parents made me. And I said, you're 72 years old and both your parents are dead. I was like, if I was the way that you, and I said my dad to lessen the blow, but the way that you had tried to make me be, I would have been dead a long fucking time ago. There wouldn't have been a breakdown and a suicide attempt in 2021. I wouldn't have made it to England. You know, I would have thrown myself off a bridge because of the way that you told me everything about me was wrong. The core of who I was in my heart, that was what was wrong. How I felt was wrong. Who I felt like I was wrong. Not what I could do. Who I was incorrect. You know, and she tried to get me tested multiple times, and I said to her, sure, they said they wouldn't test me, but you obviously still knew there wasn't something normal there.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just treat me like a human? I don't think that you had any idea what you were doing. I don't blame you. You had no idea what you were doing. Who would? You know, but why not just treat me like a person? If when you let me be myself, our relationship was good, and I was good, and I was more compliant for the things you needed me to do because you were letting me be myself. And then on the flip side, when you were trying to force me to be like my sister, for example, you got violence. Wasn't that a really good marker to maybe not do that?
Yeah.
You know, sounds pretty fucking basic to me. And I'm like, but I'm not going to live in the past. But we're having a conversation about why I'm done now. So I'm touching on those points, because those points, no matter how much I've grown and changed, have never grown and changed at your end. They've just changed the delivery, and I'm done.
It's always sad, isn't it? And I always think about this. So it's a little bit like, you know, some of the things I'm going through now as a parent. You're never told how to go through them. You just have to go through them. And then we have to look at our parents, don't we, and go, the things that they did that we don't like, or that we wouldn't do if it was us in their shoes, you can't blame them, because they're only in the position.
They were in the same position.
Yeah, you know. So
Yeah.
it's tough, isn't it? Because it's sad at the same time as tough. Because you're trying to not think bad of them, but you're also, you don't know any different because you're there beneath.
My mum had said many times that she never wanted to be her mother.
She never wanted to be her mother.
Yeah. So my grandmother has said in front of me and my sister more than once that she would say things like, I had sex once and look what happened, so I didn't do that again. My mum was born 6 months after her parents were married in the early 50s. So she didn't want that to be like that. Like, they didn't really want a child, you know? So she didn't want to be like that. So she had this idea of what a family unit should be. But she was so hell-bent on that idea that any diversion from that was explosive. You know, it was like... And I said, we've had a conversation that same day, and multiple times I said to her, I was like, considering everything that's happened in our family, you know, my sister's got an overactive thyroid, so she's a bit mental and controlling. And my dad cheated on her. They split up. He got remarried. Then he got a brain tumor. Then he fucking died. She had a drug addict, problematic daughter, you know, and one of it, the drug addict daughter is a borderline genius. Like, it was not what she was expecting at all. But considering all of that, we have and she's fine, but she's had breast cancer in the more recent years. We have a better relationship than 90% of families. And she's like, yeah, I agree. Like, my friends have no idea what their grown-up children are doing. And I'm so involved in your lives. I'm like, exactly. So what's your problem, lady? You know, gratitude, man. And I'd say to her, like, you're going to die. And she'd be like, don't call me old. I'm like, Dad was 52. He wasn't even 52. He didn't make it to 51. I was like, 19 of my friends died before I was 21. You know, including some family members. And I said to her, I was like, you hadn't experienced death as a teenager. I experienced 19 rounds of death before I was 21. You know, like, you're gonna die. If you don't like something, don't do it. Don't do nothing.
Yeah.
But do what you want to do.
Well.
You know, like, you're gonna die. Like, and that was the barrier, is that when I would turn around to her and put that reality in front of her, her brain, you could just kind of watch her be like, no, it has to be this way. And I was like, we're having two different conversations. I am not angry because we're having two different conversations. And I think that's the same when I end up having kids and stuff. Like, and it's the same that you'll experience a lot of, like, you're going to come up against new problems, you know, and stuff that you were never equipped to deal with because it didn't exist when we were kids. But at the same token, it's like, well, when I get thrown a problem at me, and as coaches, it makes us really prepared for this. When I get thrown a new problem at me, I go, what are my options? Rather than going, no, it should be like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what we're losing generationally in a positive way, is in the 40s, 30s, 50s, 60s, no, this is how it is. And you have to be like this, or we're going to put you in a sanitarium and give you a lobotomy.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, you're overly emotional? Have hormonal contraception. You know? There's not something else going on. But now we ask questions and investigate. You know,
Well, the thing is, there's many options, isn't there, with anything that happens. So
yeah, but they didn't used to
explore
be.
them rather than thinking that there's
Ask questions.
a one-directional...
Yeah, so I think it's still going to be difficult for people, no matter what, especially because new questions are going to come with new technology and new experiences. Like your 7-year-old is us when we were 13.
Yeah.
Easy,
Yeah.
you know, like we were still beating...
Which is scary to think, isn't
Yeah,
it?
we were still beating the weakest member of the group with a stick when we were 14, you know, and like throwing people's bike in the river. Like now they're like, I've had a phone since I was 6. And you're like, that's terrifying. You speak to kids in America.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have TV.
It's like the other day, Leo, what was he doing? Basically, he was swiping like you do on TikTok on something. I was like, what are you on?
Concerning.
He wasn't on TikTok, but you know what I mean? I was like, and yeah, I think it was on YouTube Shorts. That's what they do now, don't they? You swipe up? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, he just
Knows what to do.
Up,
like he's an old man watching the paper.
Yeah. Next he'll be fucking liking it and commenting saying, yeah, good one. Whatever.
I could do that better than you.
Yeah.
Keyboard warrior before he's 12.
The funny thing is as well, so I'm just saying random shit now, but it's my nan's birthday, 5th, whatever it was the other day. Nelly and Leo did a video on their iPad for her.
And she couldn't figure out how to watch it.
Well, no, but they haven't connected the fact that it needs to be sent to her.
Brilliant. It's just
But
on
isn't
the
that
iPad.
just funny though? So what they've done is they've done a video for her on their iPad, which is so sweet, but she didn't get it
That's because all
they
videos
think
are everywhere.
That it's because it's on there, she's got it.
Yep.
But it's just hilarious.
It's
isn't
kinda
it?
terrifying.
I mean, she did get one as well, just so you know.
Yeah. We then sent it to
I
her.
didn't bomb her out. Oh, by the way.
But it's terrifying to think that that level of connectivity is just a given.
Yeah.
You know, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's brilliant because people like me, female, autistic, who doesn't necessarily come off as autistic. I do once you know me a little bit. As you know, you're like, yes, she's autistic. No, I'm not done. But, like, I have emotions. I'm very emotional. I have relationships, which are a shitstorm, but moving forward, you know, like, I run a business, I have friendships, I'm socially active, I talk, I can do that. I'm not sitting in the corner screaming. I am in Tesco's.
But as well, it's obviously autism's so different for so many people.
100%.
Like, you know, you can't say someone's autistic and then have this picture in your head of what they're going to look like or do or
People say to me
or...
all the time, you don't look autistic.
But do you know what that is? That's
I
because they're expecting you to be severely autistic to the point where...
Would you like me to take off all my clothes and sit in the corner and scream? Because I would like to do that, but it's not socially acceptable.
I'm just retaining myself from doing that.
I say to people, you got to understand, it's not like I'm more or less autistic. It's more like, because I've mirrored my whole life, you know, so it's more like inside. I watch RuPaul's Drag Race religiously, to the point where I watch it in French, I watch it in German, like I watch it in other countries, like I watch it, right?
I'll be honest, I don't even know what it is.
It's drag queens. It's the Olympics for drag queens.
Okay.
It's like a game show that goes for 13 weeks. They knock one off every week with challenges for drag queens. I relate.
Are you aware of this?
I relate so much to drag queens.
I have not got a clue.
Because
what it is.
they're in the workroom, like putting on their makeup for fucking 3 hours or whatever,
Yeah.
talking about the trauma they've been through and about their whole life having to be someone they're not. And now there's a lot of them that are trans or there's born female assigned at birth drag queens.
Yeah.
You know, not men in drag, women in drag.
Yeah.
Men drag kings, which is the opposite, you know.
Yeah.
All sorts, non-binary people, but it's not the gender conversation, it's that they're having constant conversations about being isolated from society because something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
Until they found wrong, exactly.
Yeah.
Until they found this thing, and the trauma they've been through, and the bullying they've been through, and the physical abuse they've been through, and the emotional abuse they've been through, and every single topic that they touch on, really deep, raw stuff on television, well televised, all over the world. And I'm like, autism, spectrum, people who look normal. You look, you know, well, I don't have another head, you know. And they go, people used to say, oh, she's just acting out because she's alternative. Because I've always been alternative, you know, like I was born drawing all over myself. And I've always cut bits of my hair off and, like, you know, put holes in my body and things like that because I'm a dickhead. Don't leave me alone with a pair of clippers. But it's that same thing. People would just brush it off as I'm weird. But drag queens go through this exact same thing, and they walk out of the house done up as drag queens, as fully independent men who run businesses and companies and have relationships and all those complexities in normal life, and then walk out of the house with a massive target on them. Like, imagine taking your autism or your ADHD and putting it in a neon sign above your head, and how everybody would treat you if you walked out of the house with that neon sign above your head. You know, and we struggle because they treat us like everybody else, and we're not like everybody else.
Yeah.
But they struggle because once they do that, everyone can see who they really are and go for them because of it. Attack them because tall puppy syndrome. You know, and I'm like, I relate to you so much. You know? But yeah, I think it's easier. We're at 27 minutes.
Don't worry, we got a few more minutes.
Dun, dun, dun.
One thing I wanted to mention about, obviously, like, you know, like when you was quite heavily on drugs, did you do that to lose yourself as such?
No, they made me like everyone else. All of a sudden, I've never had that thing in my head that says maybe don't do that. I was a downhill competitive skier when I was like 7 or 8. You know, no concept of death. I would come home. I crashed a Pee-wee 50 motorbike, tiny little motorbike, yeah, in a pair of short shorts and a singlet in Australia in 45-degree weather, on a gravel hill into a tree, and hiked for 20 minutes back up the hill because everyone ran away. I was 7, maybe 8, bleeding all down my face and my front back to the house, to my parents. And I was like, Mom, I fucked up. Like, my poor mother, the poor woman went through some stuff. I would leap off horses that had lost their shit. and barrel roll. You know, like, I was a fighter. I used to get kicked in the head and elbowed in the head, and I was like, this is fine. Broke my leg skateboarding, came out of my shin. You know, like, I've never had a concept of maybe don't do that. You know, and still to this day, I'll do something and afterwards I'll be like, could have died. Someone's like, you nearly died. I'm like, I nearly died.
That was cool.
Cool, let's do it again. Excellent. I bought a tattoo gun. Brilliant, you know. I'm an idiot. I've been hit in the head a lot. But that crossed over to someone said, hey, do you want to smoke a joint? And nothing in my head said, don't do that. My dad smoked weed his whole life, but I never saw it until he was terminal. I never really realised until he was terminal.
Oh, really?
And he was a high-functioning alcoholic, like 2 bottles of whiskey a day, 2 bottles of Shivers Regal a day. But he smoked like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. So the concept of smoking, and my mum used to smoke cigarettes, was never a thing. I went back to some mate's house one day. I remember this. I don't remember the first time I took a pill, but I remember the first time I smoked weed. I remember walking to their house and me and my mate being like, oh, we can do something bad, you know? And I remember having this slight moment of being like, is the world going to end if I smoke a joint? You know, like that feeling. But then I remember smoking this joint. I remember watching my friend roll and realizing that I knew how to do that because I'd seen my dad roll my whole life but never really realized what it was. Watching my friend roll and smoking a joint, and all of a sudden my mates, who we were kind of like the odd group, you know, so we were comfortable with not finding each other funny, all of a sudden everything they said was fun, fine, normal, made sense. They wanted to do boring, stupid shit and watch dumb comedy films, and I was like, this is brilliant. This is hilarious. I don't need to read another meter-wide textbook that's been translated from another language. I can talk to you idiots. And all of a sudden, my mum liked me better because I was happy to do the boring things she wanted me to do. My school liked me better because I wasn't throwing chairs across the room because I was high. You know, I used to drink vodka straight from the bottle and do specialist maths homework. Best grades I've ever gotten. Yeah. I used to drink at school, you know, and they tried to keep me out of school for drinking, so they busted someone, dobbed me in. With the same day, I'd gotten a girl out of an abusive home by getting her to talk to one of the counselling supporters at school. So they sent me home, suspended for drinking at school with a flask on me. And I said, today I'm sober, was my response. You actually got me on a sober day. Went home, I'm about 13, right? Went home, Dad's yelling at me in English and in Serbian. And so my stepmom is staying very far away because as soon as we went Eastern European on each other, she'd be like, I'm not getting involved. Because we're the same. And he gets a call from the school and he answers the phone in Serbian and then corrects himself. And then they tell him that they're cancelling my suspension and giving me in-school detention because I've done this thing with this girl. And he's like, you fucking asshole.
Just as you were going.
You fucking asshole. And I'm like, what? And he's like, go back to school. And I was like, okay. So all of a sudden I found that if I drank, smoked weed, took pills, blah, 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 I was friends with everybody my age. The
So
adults were
like
yelling
a
at me.
peer pressure thing then, like to be like them?
There was a adult pressure for me to act my age.
Yes.
There wasn't, teenagers didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, whatever, do what you like. Cool. You know, I was a tart. That's how I made friends in high school. Guys were like, you're really weird. And I'd just take off my shirt and they'd be like, brilliant.
Really, really weird.
Men are simple creatures, you know, like to this day. It's like, men are like, you talk a lot. I'm like, but wait. And they're like, I've forgotten whatever you said and everything is fine. And I'm like, simple creatures, you poor bastards. But yeah, and so there was a lot of pressure from the adults around me to be more like a teenager and then be less violent about not being like a teenager. And then I was like, fine, smoked weed, took drugs, and all of a sudden they were like, oh, therapy must have worked. You know, I quit drugs because I wanted to feel happy because I was happy about something. Not because I was stoned or
Say
on
that
pills.
again. You took drugs.
I quit drugs.
So you quit drugs
because I wanted to be happy because I was happy about something. And I wanted to be sad about something rather than just numb. If I was sad about it, then fine. There's nothing wrong with negative emotions. you know, and I wanted to go to sleep because I was tired and wake up and feel rested rather than pass out, you know, and I was like, I don't care if I feel good and bad things. I don't feel anything, you know, and I just stopped. And everyone was like, how'd you do that? And I was like, well, my dad died, you know, and my first most major relationship after my dad died ended because he became a meth head. And everybody, and I wanted to know that people were friends with me because they were friends with me, because it made me like everybody else. But then by the time I was sort of 20 and I was bartending and being an alcoholic was just normal, you know, these people would be like, oh my God, you're my best friend. I hate Coke. I've never been a Coke person. This country loves Coke. It's because they're boring, you know. I would be out. People would be off their face on drugs. They'd be really excited to meet me, blah, blah, blah. I would also be on drugs, but I'm fine. I know who I am the whole time. Like, I don't feel different. And then I would see them somewhere multiple times out, and they'd be like, oh my God, you're my best friend. They would message me all the time, 2 a.m, which was a normal time for us because hospitality. I would see them on the street on a weekday during the day, act like they didn't know me. And I was like, nah, you're not my people. Nope. You know, and that was another reason I left Oz. I quit drugs, and all of a sudden I was like, you're not my people.
You're surrounding yourself with these bad people on bad vibes, aren't you? Yeah.
Because they'd been through stuff, and I'd been through stuff, you know, so I had ways to relate to them. I was always the one that everyone sort of called mum because I'd been through so much more than most people, but I was fun, and I was always in control. Like, we would go out, I would party for 3 days, but I would have a plan and I would be in control and everything would be fine if you stuck with me because I was fine. But, like, yeah, I just stopped taking drugs in a day and I was fine. I cried for 24 hours physically. Emotionally, I was fine. I just couldn't stop crying, like 24 hours.
And then you got to drugs since.
And then I was fine. No, so then I sort of dabbled here and there because at the same time, I didn't have a personal reason to stop taking drugs.
Right.
I didn't overdose. I could keep jobs.
It's not like you couldn't handle your life.
Yeah, like life was fine. It was everybody else. You know, I was like, I don't want that. So now and then I'd be like, cool, I can't switch my brain off. Someone would have a spliff. Even in the last, like, it's probably the last 2 years I've been like absolutely nothing. But someone would have a spliff and I'd be like, I don't have to do anything tomorrow. I'll switch my brain off for the evening, you know. Or like my 30th birthday was probably the last time that I really partied. And I was like, let's see if I die. I did not die. I am still here. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I went to bed after midday the day before. But it's just, but these days, if I take drugs, I would look at people in the last a couple of years ago, I would be off my face, they would be off my face, and all I would feel internally was, I'm still just as bored, but also my jaw hurts. And my friends would be off their face having conversations about things that don't matter because they hate their lives, and I'm like, I'm going to go home and clean my house because it's going to be more interesting than this. And cheaper.
And that proves, doesn't it, they're doing it to run away from normal life. And actually you're just blending in. Yeah,
and I realised that I don't have anything to run away from.
Yeah.
I like my life, you know, and I don't need that. Also, strength sports, you can't party. I might be fine at the time. I can work.
It doesn't work well.
But I can't go in the gym the next day and push a log above my face.
Maybe on your face.
On my face, yeah. I can sleep inside the log, but like I just can't do the two things at once, not to the level that I have the capacity to do.
The bit that I want to dig into, 2021. So obviously you've mentioned a few times that you had a breakdown. What exactly, like, what happened?
I've gotten pretty good at summarising this. When you have a breakdown, an overdose, a suicide attempt, you then have to tell every single person who calls you on the phone, like the council tax, what's happened. So I've gotten pretty good at summarising this. I had rebuilt a life, as you already know. I'd been competing in strength sports. I'd been working really hard and really closely with a certain company in the world of sports, in the world of nutrition and stuff, about do X, Y, Z, and we'll sponsor you, which would be very helpful. So, and I'd done it. I'd been doing it. And I'd turned something I did for my health and my mental state and for finding a tribe and a group of people and shaping my life around into a job. And I was about to do my first pro powerlifting comp at the Irish Pro in August, and this was just after lockdown, so it had been moved multiple times. I had like an 800 Wilks and like world record bench press by that point and stuff like that. Wilks? Dots. Whatever. Who cares?
I thought it was Wilks.
Reshell. Different feds, different pointless
okay.
coefficient.
Right,
Nobody
know
really
Wilks.
cares.
No.
Yeah. It's powerlifting. No one cares.
Sumo.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't do it because it's hard. And I just opened a cafe above the gym I was working in, and it was a bucket list thing. I didn't want to go back into hospitality forever. And my dog, Scooby-Doo, was unwell. He was 10, and he sounded like he was a fat person who'd gone for a run. But I wasn't sure what it was. He used to cough in general, and I'd started seeing someone who is a textbook narcissist, and I had to get the police involved afterwards. And my mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'd moved to be closer to this company. Then they moved. I was running a brick and mortar business and running a PT business. I was about to be classified as a pro athlete, and I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I was dating someone who was treating me the way my mother did. And my dog, who saved my life, and who moved country with me, was unwell. And the guy I was seeing, it was just the final thing. The guy I was seeing, my mum called me to say that her breast cancer was actually worse than they thought. I went into work and did my accounting for the day and realized that my business was failing because I was pulled in too many directions. And the guy I was seeing called me and said he wasn't going to come around later because he's decided that he was still in love with his wife. That was the first time he'd mentioned that it was his wife, not his ex-wife. And that he couldn't support me because he wanted to go be with her. And I went home and drank a bottle of tequila and a bottle of whiskey and took a whole packet of paracetamol and half a packet of codeine and went to sleep and woke up the next morning because he called me to say he was sorry and he regretted that decision. And I was crying on the phone and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "The only reason it didn't work is because I've answered this phone." And most people wake up and they go, well, what we see is that most people wake up and they go, "I'm so glad I failed." But I wasn't glad I failed. And it wasn't about dying. It was that I didn't feel like I was in control of any part of my life. And my whole life, everything had been, this is a problem because of you. Everything is a problem because of you. You are the thing that makes things hard.
That's your program, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how I'd been, And now I had one more person turning around to me and saying, "You're not enough, and you weren't worth the truth, and I don't care what you're going through. Something else is more important." And everything was getting out of my hands, and I didn't feel like I could save my dog anymore as well. And I just went, I just need to unplug. And how have I unplugged my whole life? Drugs, alcohol. But I just kept unplugging. I just went, no, let's just keep unplugging. Like I was drinking and drinking and drinking, and I was like, well, feel nothing. Drugs, drinking, drugs, drinking, drugs, drinking, and then felt like I was made out of butter and went to bed. I took myself to bed. I don't remember going to bed. I spoke to some people, don't remember doing it. And then he found out. He wanted me to go to hospital. A bunch of people wanted me to go to hospital. I refused to go to hospital because they would have put me under watch and taken my puppy and my dog away from me. And the only thing that was going to get me back to where I was structure.
Yeah, normal life.
Yeah,
as such, yeah.
And my goals. And he then left his wife and his ex-wife again and moved in with me. Long story short, he told her I was a friend and he was moving in to support me. He was still married the whole time. Joy. Brilliant. Yeah, my type is arsehole. And everybody told me not to go and do the Irish Pro. And I still got on a plane 2 weeks later and made weight and did the Irish Pro and injured myself because my kidneys were shutting down in my first squat, but finished the day. I still came second. I did a 60-kilo deadlift and left.
I remember you said that.
Yeah, and got back and took Scooby to the vet, and it was a really bad prognosis. He was leaking fluid, which is a really common thing for big dogs. And within a month, he was on medication, and then my puppy ate all his medication, and she was fine. And I had to close all my businesses down and go into therapy, and she was useless, the woman I was seeing for therapy. And then within a month, I decided that I had to get Scooby put down. So I'd already decided to move because a lot of bad stuff had happened in that house. So I moved to where I live now. And the guy I was with at the time said to me to get a 6-month lease because afterwards we'd move in together. I still live there 2 years later. And he thinks I've moved, I think, hopefully. And I signed into JD to work there in Shrewsbury. Signed up, moved, spent the week with my dog and my mate, who is now my housemate, unpacking, got Scooby put down, and then walked back into JD and started work the next day. And this is all within about 8 weeks of having an overdose. Because I'm friends with the regional manager because I've worked for them before. And I walked in and I said, I'll be here for 6 months. And they were like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, no, I'm going to be here for 6 months. I'm going to build an online business, which I'd never done properly. And I was like, I'm doing it. Fuck it. Fuck it. My dog's died. Nothing else matters. And then all of a sudden I had this boyfriend coming to me being like, feel bad about my problems instead of yours. You're pathetic, etc. Gaslighting and so on. And I was like, my dog died. Who are you? You don't matter. Which helped, really. And I rebuilt a business and built an online business and got enough money together and someone invested into me. And 6 months to the day, I left the gym. And 2 months later, I had opened my gym. And was still competing in powerlifting, going very badly. And all of a sudden, I realized that powerlifting had a really negative ties to it for me by then, emotionally. And went to Worlds, end of 2022, and was like, this is going to be my hiatus for a while. And now I've had a business, a gym that's growing and successful and not stopped competing. And I've brought up this other dog who I'm trying to get puppies off. And all of this stuff while having an ex-boyfriend stalk me and the police involved and recovering my body from an overdose. And it took 12 months for my kidneys to recover. Like,
really?
Yeah, like
when...
Is
that under, like, watch through the NHS or anything?
No.
Or you mean what you knew?
Yeah, what I knew.
You felt, yeah.
And when we started was, I went to Worlds. That's when I stopped taking steroids. And then 4 months later, I came off a contraceptive rod on my arm because I knew I had to start all over again. And I knew I needed to just put weight on, you know, because I couldn't hold weight anymore. That's how I knew that my kidneys still weren't doing anything because I was losing strength and I couldn't hold weight. And I went up to sort of 73 kilos, I think I was, about there. And that's when we started. And I said, I need a coach to be doing this for me because otherwise I'm going to have another breakdown. And I knew when all that stuff happened, as I came back from the Irish Pro, that I would need time and therapy, but that I was not in a secure enough position to do that. So I just put it on the back burner. And then about 6 months ago, I said, I'm now ready. And then my mum got here. And then that happened. And then I came here the day she left and I said to you, I was like, can you please meet me out the front because I just need a filter between the car of emotions and the gym full of people. And you were like, oh my God, it's got feelings. It's broken.
Sometimes all you need is a hug.
Yeah, and I just needed a minute. Like, I was okay, but I just needed a minute. I didn't need to walk in there with that. I probably would have had a meltdown in front of people, and that would have been embarrassing. And now I'm in therapy with a clinical psychiatrist, and he's really good. I've actually got only my second appointment tomorrow. But everybody says that you wake up after attempting to kill yourself and you feel fine. And you feel so glad that it didn't happen, and I fucking wasn't. And everybody talks about it as their rebirth day. And what you see on social media is people saying, I'm better now. I'm so glad it didn't happen. And what I want people to know is that there's so many people on social media in strength sports and not even in strength sports, just really on social media who don't relate to those people because they're like, but I still feel fucked. I'm still doing all of the things. I rebuilt my entire life and actually went above and beyond where I was before. But I didn't do it because I felt motivated or because I felt better. No, I did it while feeling shit. Derek Weeder says, he's a CrossFit guy that I follow. He says, you feel depressed? Do it depressed. You know, motivation's a load of crap. It's about consistency. And like, I've not been the most consistent with the stuff I've been going through recently, but I'm still a hell of a more consistent than a lot of other people. You know, my version of a lazy day is still a lot compared to other people.
The crazy thing there, though, is, and it just proves itself, is that having that structure and that consistency
will save your life.
Yeah, and it literally does, doesn't it? And,
Yeah.
but people see it as a chore and as a task to do that.
It is.
But actually,
But it has to be done.
but that's the thing. But if you don't do that, then
You have nothing.
everything is so much harder.
Yeah.
So actually, it's easier to be structured.
My thing was give myself enough responsibilities that I've chose that I don't feel like I have the choice to exit my life again.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was because I rebuilt to a structure that I really wanted, like the amount of relationships that I've burned and closed since my overdose, and I don't regret it. It was hard. Some of them have been 12, 15-year long relationships, you know, but they're out because you were shit when it happened, and you were shit before it happened, and you were shit afterwards. But now that I nearly died and my dog died, I now have this much better perspective on it. I needed a reminder. That's not how I suggest anybody have that reminder. But I
No.
needed that reminder that you're going to
But
die.
there's positives that come out of that, isn't there?
Yeah. And by having that structure that I care so much more about than the previous structure. Before I was surviving and saying yes to everything to try to impress what? To try to impress some random company that were just feeding me bullshit? To try to impress some random owner of a federation who actually doesn't give a shit and you'll never get anything back from the sport? You know, why? Why was I doing that? To try to mirror people to have friends because I'm fucking autistic. I was doing the same thing that I did when I was
You
14.
did. Yeah.
But just in a much more adult way. Bigger mountain, bigger wind, bigger fall. You know, whereas now it's like if I'm not okay, I know because I've put so much worth into what I'm building and I want that so much more, and anything that makes that feel shit is out the door. There is no second, third chances. You are gone. If you are a good enough friend, we will have a conversation about it, but you're probably already gone. You know, but there is cutthroat, get out, piss off, don't waste my time.
Do you think that's become one of your focus, strength things now that you, do you know what I'm trying to say, that you
Yeah.
work on?
Yeah, 100%. And like the amount of people, broader spectrum, world of strength sports, that have a problem with me, that I don't even know what it's for. I don't give a shit. I didn't give a shit previously, but I'm like, if you want to take, you don't even know me. If you want to take other people's opinion of me as
of
who I
course.
am, there's the door. In fact, don't come in my house. You know, don't come in my gym either. But if you want to come into my gym and you feel like that, or you've ever been like that, and you find a home in my gym, which everyone in my gym has found, you know, no matter who they are and how often they're there, if somebody walks into that environment and takes the piss, I mean, not like we do, you know, but takes the piss out, I will publicly embarrass you in front of everybody there. You will realise what you're doing to people and you will get out. And I don't care how negatively that affects you, even though I'm the one sitting here going, we've got to be more careful about how things negatively affect people. No.
Yeah, but that's your protection barrier, isn't
You
it?
choose-
That's for you in your area.
Choose who you want to be in the world. Don't just exist and react. Choose who you want to be in the world, because now I hold everything I have and I've created so much higher that when something's not good personally, I go, that's dangerous and that scares me, and that's why I'm in therapy. I was like, I'm going to say goodbye to the relationship with my parent, my last parent, and I know that's going to be a big thing and it's going to be a lot harder than I think it is. What I didn't realize is how much I actually have. It's all my relationships with men, you know, because I'm straight, but it's all of my interpersonal relationships, not friends so much. I'm better at it with the friendship group thing, but I did that and went, wow. I have for 3 weeks felt like I did before I tried to kill myself. I need therapy. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. Spoke to a friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to for a couple of years, and they'd gone through therapy. Told them that I'd actually gone to my parent after she'd left and said, you said if you want your help then to ask, and I don't want to ask you, but I need help to pay for therapy because I need it. And she said, oh, maybe I'll think about it. And I said, don't think about it, forget I asked. I'm not giving you that power. Yeah, that's fucked. And he turned around and said, I'm going to pay for a block of your therapy. And I'm like, okay, thank you, appreciate it. Because as much as I don't take people's help, and I've always done everything myself, this is a deep problem.
There's a time when you know.
When you have to. And this is a deep problem. And this person who knows me really well sees that it's a deep problem and knows that that's the help I need. No questions. And they're the people in your world.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and you've got to be able to turn around to people and say, I'm not okay. I don't want you to sit here and hold my hand, but I'm so not okay that I don't know what to do about it. What would you do about it? You know, and if they say, I would do this and you haven't already tried it, do it. What's the problem if you don't? You may as well do it. What have you got to lose? Depression? Brilliant. You know, so I just want to be one of those people in the public sphere that go, yeah, this week I'm really fucking shit and my whole life has exploded multiple times and like I've nearly died. Everyone I care about has died, but I've got all these other people that I care about. I've got a great dog, I've got a great business, and I've got people who will invest in me as a person and as a brand because I am this person 24/7. You know, and all the people my entire life who turned around and said, you're the problem because you're different. Well, you know, those people are still doing exactly the same thing they were 15 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm on the other side of the world applying for my 3rd passport. Fuck them. Summary, done.
You know, like, obviously from that, well, from your therapist, do you feel like it's something that you're learning new things because of the age and the experiences that you're at?
I think the most important thing with therapy is to keep seeing therapists until you find the right one. If you find a therapist and you don't have any lessons, it's not that therapy isn't for you. It's it wasn't the right therapist for you.
I probably had about 6.
Yeah.
But as well, something I found out, because when I first left the army, I went through a lot of therapy. I was trying to fix something that I wasn't ready to want to fix.
Yeah.
And actually, I was just...
And maybe that thing
I was
wasn't
just
the problem.
sitting there like that. And this therapy was a dick. The next one was a dick. The next one... And actually, they weren't. It's because I wasn't ready to accept.
Yeah. It was
that.
too scary.
Yeah.
And too painful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you got to hit rock bottom and then realize that that's not rock bottom.
Yeah.
That rock bottom's further and worse and scary. If you're at rock bottom and you're just upset, that's not rock bottom. If you're terrified of yourself, that's a pretty good sign that you're ready to do something
But there's
about
still
it.
further.
Yeah, there's always further,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I want people to realize that Are You Okay Day is a waste of fucking time. And that turn around and say, nah, man, I'm not okay. But I'm still going to compete next weekend. And I'm still going to get this record. And I'm still going to grow my business. And I'm still going to do all of these things because those are the things that will teach me to be okay again.
Yeah.
You know? Like, if I died tomorrow, if I got hit by a bus, people aren't going to forget me. Whether that's because I'm annoying or because I've done shit, I don't give a shit. They're still not going to forget me.
Still imprinted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think a big message there that I just want to really elaborate for people is to always stick to what you said you're going to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, have that routine. Yeah, of course. But have that routine in place, regardless of how you feel. Keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I say have a couple non-negotiable things.
Yeah.
And non-negotiable things can't be trained 6 days a week. You can't train 6 days a week all the time. But non-negotiable things can be, I always do half of my laundry on a Thursday. That basic.
Yeah,
Or a non-negotiable thing will be having a shower. Like, and that sounds so small, but it is that basic thing.
Yeah, but it's huge for some people at the point they're at.
Yeah.
So actually, it's not small.
No, you know. But yeah, with the therapist, I've had one session with this guy, and I came out of it and I felt like, I was like, this guy's smarter than me. And that's a big thing for me. They need to be smarter than me. And I was like, cool, awesome. You also look like you were the counselor on Harry Potter. Like he's possibly a wizard. It's brilliant. He lives in a cottage in like the hills. Like he's definitely a wizard. But he's really intelligent. And I was like, yeah, this will work. You know, and he brought up a couple concepts of what I'd spoken about that was like, yep, correct. You know. And if the NHS says no, then find the money.
Because I think as well, like that thing, when you meet someone that breaks something down and understands what you understand,
Doesn't
that
project.
helps you, doesn't it? Because it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So you do understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so simple, isn't it? But actually, it's like some of the conversations we have. If you just get someone, it makes you go, cool.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than like having to, because I say it all the time, and I've always thought it, and I always will think it, because it's like an inner program that I always used to have to try and feel normal.
Yeah.
And that was always then a problem, because what the fuck is that?
Einstein
then you're
said,
constantly trying to find it.
Einstein said, if you try to get try to teach a bird to climb a tree, it'll always think it's stupid. A frog to climb a tree, it'll always think it's
Fish.
stupid. Fish.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
do know that one.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
You know, and that's
It's so true.
it's so true.
And it's really funny because I always then try and think of a fish.
About a
trying
fish.
to climb a tree.
Of course you do.
My fish made it.
Go on, buddy. You can
got
do it.
No, Tess, I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me.
And I appreciate, like, obviously what you've said.
Didn't
you know,
ugly
and-
cry.
No, I think it's tough to try and say this, but I do want to make people get deep with things.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
You can't push people to do that if they're not ready.
no. But at the same time, it's about just real life shit, and that's what this is about, right?
What's what about strength sports
And
is
you're-
about? People think there are very few people in the world, I'm friends with one of them, who do it because they like sport.
Yeah.
You know, who are motivated and do it because they like sport. But there are very few of those people. Most people used to say, why do you go to the gym? And I would blatantly stare them in the eye and say, so I don't take drugs. And they would think I was joking. And I was like, who's laughing?
Yeah.
Now that's not why. But
Yeah.
but everything we do comes from a deeper fucking reason. As long as it's something you've chosen to do.
My gym was the addiction, so I wasn't addicted to bad things.
Yeah.
But now it's becoming a passion and actually a driving force to
And a
help other
structure.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to help them do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people find you? Where can people follow you? And
I'm
all
on
that shit?
Instagram, me personally on Instagram as Theresa_Saurus Rex. I might change to something ridiculous soon.
We'll put it on the screen until she changes. it.
Yeah. My gym is on Instagram as Wolves Den Chapter with no vowels 1. Or you can find the website at roguewolftribe.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's other things like YouTube and Patreon, but I'm really lazy. So I haven't done them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the time being. So yeah, the gym we're open whenever I'm available, and we do a £10 visitors pass, and we've put on some comps, and I'll probably put on some more comps next year, and yeah.
Push it.
Just keep
I'm
ticking
yet
along.
to go to gym, so I will visit at some point.
You're very busy.
I will make the effort
Have your equipment.
to get out. There you are. Yeah. That would be a good
You're there in
excuse.
spirit.
Tell me you won't give it back, and that would be an excuse for me to come and get it.
Yeah, I still don't have money to replace the axle bar though.
But no, that's cool. But no, I appreciate it, and thank you very much for your time and your
Thank you.
honesty.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime.